Oh, yo, yo, so much anger inside. Bullet by bullet, I continued. Oh, yo, just like Jekyll and Hyde. A few more bullets and that was it, all full 30 round mags. A full mag is a happy mag, I said out loud, and he said back to me, I know that song. And then I realized I had been humming the song. He finished a part of the song. All I want to do is live my life. Exactly, I responded. We both sat in silence as I got out my 9mm ammo and started reloading my mags from my backup sidearm, watching the cameras. As I loaded my short mag, I decided to try to start up a conversation. There was a lot to cover and not a lot of time. People call me the analyst usually. We don't really use names. What do people call you? He sounded sullen. Well, before all the crew got taken, they would call me Eyes. That's because I like to watch everyone on the cameras, and if there was anything they needed to know, I would let them know right away. I could tell he was sad, but I had to ask. What happened to the rest of the crew after all the people that wanted to go back to the mainland got synced up with their ride? Well, he said, everyone remaining was fine with the extended 3-day voyage around the storm. We sailed around the worst part of the storm, and that worked really well. After that, the captain had promised we would break the news to the passengers. Eyes continued. We had everyone in the dining room, and he broke the news about what had happened in the city. They were actually relieved. It turns out they weren't from there, and all their families were on board or safely far away. They wouldn't have wanted to return specifically to that city anyway. I nodded, and Eyes continued. The captain had a few suggestions that we all compiled as ways to return them to shore, and we proposed them to the crew. Everyone agreed immediately that going to Sealth was out of the picture. A strange new National Guard group that nobody had ever heard of had restored order to Sealth and installed the new government. We could try to make it to one of those larger islands, but resources wouldn't last there for very long and would be a drain on them. Eyes continued. Some asked if they could be dropped off in Bremerton or Bellingham. We tried to radio our military contacts in Bremerton, and they failed our fire recognition, so we didn't even bother trying to get into visual range. We assumed that they had been taken over there, been an evac or some combination of the two. So we set off for Bellingham to drop off the passengers. Eyes took a drink from his water, and I mine. I had finished filling my mags at this point and put my AR mag back in its pouch, and I told Eyes I needed to swap mags on my backup sidearm for a second so he wouldn't freak out. I made sure I'd be pointing it in a safe direction because I'm sure this looks weird to people who don't know what's going on. I still had the extended mag from earlier. I safely and fluidly drew the pistol from concealment, closely as I'd practiced so many times. Popped the mag out, I let it fall into my hand and set it on the table. Grabbed the short mag and slammed it into my backup sidearm, checked the round indicator, and there was a round chambered, so I didn't need to rack the slide. Then I holstered my backup sidearm into its concealed holster. I finished topping off the extended mag and put it where I placed the special mag for my backup sidearm. Then I set my backpack on the floor and tucked the straps in so I wouldn't get tripped on it if I got up. In regards to my backup sidearm's magazines, I keep those mags separate from my main sidearm since that pistol takes a separate single stack mag. My main sidearm's mags sit in front of my AR mags on my chest rig. Those magazines both fit 9mm bullets, but they are double stack mags. They're taller, and because they're taller and wider, actually fit in my chest rig a lot better. I keep the mags in separate places so I don't accidentally grab the wrong mags on accident when training, and muscle memory have taken over in combat. He offered me some breakfast. He had some dry cereal, some of the kind that was wheat and had the frosting. He poured me a big cup, and I started popping them in my mouth one at a time. He did the same, and then he continued with the story as we both watched the monitors. We were out around one of the islands and wanted to get back to where we had a straight shot at Bellingham. We noticed we'd attracted some attention and we couldn't outrun them. Apparently it didn't take long for piracy to take over. As they chased us, they yelled, "Kill, kill, kill, die, die, die," over the marine frequency, which I admit was terrifying and disorienting the first time. We tried to outrun them, but we couldn't. The captain killed the engines and gave me everyone's key cards for being able to turn the engines on and access any of the secure doors, and told me to hide. Eyes looked very upset at this point and continued, so I took all the passes and came down here. The boat was adrift at that point. Everyone had improvised weapons, but there was honestly no way they could fight off the pirates. They tried to hold them off at the dock entry, but the pirates just shot at them. Then they were able to board and kettled everybody onto the ships they had and took them away. They left an occupying force on the yacht, but soon realized they had no way of getting it to run. Eyes was determined to finish his story as we both munched on our cereal, drank our water, and watched the cameras. They'd already ferried the passengers off, and so there's really no civilians left to use as leverage against the crew. The pirates tried to make the crew tell them where the passkeys were to turn everything back on, but they didn't know. They had given them to the captain had given them to me, but he wasn't going to tell. I had to watch as they executed the crew members one by one, trying to make the captain tell them where the pass keys to the ship were. Then they killed the captain. Then Eyes concluded, I'm the last surviving crew member of the ship. I couldn't let them have the ship. I can't let them have the ship. So what'd you do? I asked. Well, I said, I waited until they got comfortable and started this little program that we used on some of our events that were for the haunted cruise. Basically, people can sign up and they can come on the ship and pretend like it's haunted. Eyes got this disgusted but intrigued look on his face. Basically, imagine we can project fear into people, and at the same time we mess with the systems around the ship, driving people nuts. Of course, I control it all from here and always make sure people don't go too crazy. Basically, just to mess with people and spook them out a little bit. I would never want to make people completely stark raving terrified, because even though people act like they want that, they really don't. It's a fine balancing act. We both nodded, and he continued. So I have a protective barrier around the hull here, and I can turn the rest on and off accordingly. That way, if people think they're smart and are around the ship, I can still get to them during these events and gently nudge them back to where they're supposed to be. Never to be used on fellow staff, of course. We both nodded and laughed. Eyes continued. After the pirates boarded with the telltale kill kill die die over the comms, the ship spent several days just drifting through the ocean. They couldn't figure out how to get any of it to work, and they couldn't find me. Rather, they didn't know there was a hole and hadn't put two and two together, so I just sat here and learned their patterns. After a few days of me learning their patterns and more drifting through the ocean, and one night I flipped the prototype fire engine on, slow at first when they started to sleep, then scaled it up to full blast once they were fully out. We both munched on our cereal some more and looked at the monitors to make sure nobody was coming. Within moments, they began thrashing around in their sleep, then they awoke, hitting full panic terror mode. I didn't know what they saw, but about a third of them gouged their eyes out or smashed their heads in within a few minutes. The pirate leader barely got off the ship alive. He killed the two surviving pirates that actually would have made it off with him, due to his sheer paranoia. Eyes finished his sentence and offered me some more cereal, which I happily accepted. Then he topped his cup off as well. We both took swigs of water, and then he continued. I stayed in here because I couldn't figure out what to do. The ship drifted for a few weeks. Thankfully, the pirates waited a while because the fear engine takes a while to recharge with the amount of juice I poured into them, so I waited in here hiding with the kitty, which is good to keep the mice off the ship and away from the food. Also, he's a therapy kitty, which makes the crew feel better if they get sick for any reason. Anyway, I kept debating on going out to clean up. It was horrible having to see my dead friends strewn about the ship and the horrible mangled pirate crew. My counterpart continued as we looked at the monitors and ate our cereal. I was just about to start the cleanup process, thinking they hadn't come back, as we drifted along for a few weeks when they came back. They must have thought the last people were lying or something. I immediately turned the fear engine on low and ramped it up as they saw each one of the bodies. By the time I'd gotten up to about 70% power, but half the boarding crew killed the other half trying to complete their exit off the ship. We both munched on our cereal and watched the monitors. Then I asked, "Then what happened?" He continued, "Well, apparently that was almost it for them. They had lost 10 to 15 crew members because the two events and decided the losses were too high. Something about the ship being haunted. And that's how the rumor got started?" I concluded. "Yes," he confirmed. So what about the anchor going down and the cleanup, I asked. Well, he responded, after that second boarding failure, I let the ship drift a few more days since we were in fairly open waters. This was to see if the pirates were going to come back again, and it seemed my plan had worked. The pirates didn't seem to want to come back, so I gave all the bodies a proper sea burial and promptly cleaned up.